One of the things I think was really interesting, and one of the things that drew me to that, well, there are two things that drew me to that story. I was very interested in the fact that the French had interned German refugees, mostly Jewish people, even before the Nazis invaded France. It's not something that was well known. It's not obviously something that the French talk about a whole lot. And so that I found very intriguing. We interned Japanese Americans, so I shouldn't have been surprised. Nonetheless, I was a little surprised. And so I was drawn to that, but also and the one camp that where Edouard ends up became known as the artist camp, because it was near the south of France where many of the refugees had settled. And so when they collected people to intern them, a lot of artists and writers and great thinkers ended up in this one camp, Camp de Mille. So that was really interesting. But the other part of it was this rescue effort. Again, I'm always looking for the good in bad times, right? So this rescue effort, it was led by a guy named Varian Fry, and with the help and the money of an American heiress whose name was Mary Jane Gould. And when I first learned about that effort, Varian Fry came over with a list of famous people he could get American visas for, if only he could get them out of France, basically. And Picasso, Chagall, people like that were on his list. Hannah Arendt, just really great people. It turns out some of them, like Picasso, didn't want to be gotten out, and so they weren't rescued. They stayed. But this effort did rescue a lot of really prominent people. But what drew me to it was I saw a picture of one of the characters in the book. His name is Danny Benedite. He's based on a real character. And he was literally hanging, I think it was a Chagall, from a tree. He's up there in a ladder and he's hanging it's a Max Ernst painting, a surrealist painting, hanging it from a tree. And I'm like, what's that about? And it turns out that Mary Jane Gould rented this villa where a lot of the people involved in this rescue effort lived together. They brought some of the people they were rescuing in to live with them while they were trying to get them out. And in the midst of this chaos and really risking their lives to save people, they also managed to have a heck of a good time. They had these big salons at which they didn't have much food because of rationing, but they had plenty of wine because it was France. And they would play crazy games and literally hang great art in the trees around them as they were doing this. And I thought that was just so fascinating that I wanted to learn more about it. And that's where that book, The Postmistress of Paris, came from. The truth is, the title, this is one also that began with the title, and the title was actually The Postmistress of Provence. And it was a title I came up with there was a woman who was a postmistress in Cassis, which is part of Provence, who was a forger. And so I was thinking I would write a novelization of her life, and I had that title, The Postmistress of Provence. And then I learned about, in starting to research that, I learned about this Varian Fry effort, and then I decided that's what I wanted to write. But I love the title, so I thought, well, what Mary Jane Gould did, what a lot of the people involved in that effort did, was they were couriers. They took messages to people, which, you think about, she's just taking a message to somebody, but it was actually one of the most dangerous things that people in the war could do, because you're out there on your own. If you're caught, nobody's gonna be able to come to your defense, and you're finding people in hiding, basically, and taking them messages. So I thought, oh, well, she's taking messages to people. She could be the postmistress. It could be her code name. And so that's where the title came from. And the working title was The Postmistress of Provence. A lot of the novel takes place in Marseille and at the villa outside of Marseille and at Camp de Mille, which is in Aix-en-Provence, or just outside of Aix-en-Provence. But it does start very solidly in Paris. She is from Paris, my postmistress. And my editor said, how about The Postmistress of Paris? I said, guess so, if you like it. She said, Paris sells. So I said, okay, whatever, And one of the things that people who don't publish might not know is that it's one of the things, there are two things that most authors do not have control over. And one is the title, and the other is the cover art, basically. In the last couple of weeks, I feel like I've really started to hit my stride on a novel set in right here in Carmel. And I hate to say too much about it. I said for many years I was talking about The Race for Paris being my next novel, and then it only became my next novel after not only did I stop saying it was going to be my next novel, but I changed publishers to do it. So I sort of feel like I jinxed myself, but I will say that it's again a historical novel, and it has elements of Hollywood and a dark time in Hollywood. And I'm really glad to be back writing again. I mean, I think we all need to write about what's important to us. I think even when we go through the editing process, it's really important to hold on to what's important to you, what you wanted to do. I think, it's interesting. We started out talking about my first novel, The Language of Light. If you look at that novel, it actually is a different read in hardcover than it is in paperback, because what happened in the hardcover was my then agent wanted it to end differently than I wanted it to end, and we ended up doing a compromise ending, which I didn't like. And so when Random House said they would like to bring it out in paperback, I said, that'd be great, but could I change the ending? and I swear to God, my Kim Hubby, who is the head of marketing, who is the woman I had this conversation with, she said, which way? She knew exactly what I was talking about, and because it had been left ambiguous, and I said this way, and she said, great. If you'd wanted to do it the other way, we would have said no. We've already talked about it, basically. So I think it's really important to hold on to what you want a book to be in the whole process. And if you're with people who want it to be something else, you just need to pick up your book and walk away and go someplace else.